We're smooth 98.1 FM. Good morning and welcome to Business Express. It is time to get into everything business this morning, setting the agenda. That's what it's all about. And we expect you to be part of the conversation if you send us a WhatsApp message reacting to the issues this morning on 0809 4440981 will be where we read messages. You can also go over to YouTube to catch a glimpse. Stay with us on the live stream on youtube.com/smooth981fm. You'll find us there. Just subscribe and then hit the like button, leave your comments. We'll pick them up as we proceed. I've been joined this morning by an expert. He will be joining us, Patrick Atuanya, a publisher, Moneycentral Media Limited. Good morning to you, Patrick.
Good morning. Happy to be here with you this morning.
All right, for starters, let's just quickly see. I see an article that's coming in from your publication where you talked about the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, where they declared a reports of 1.8 trillion naira 2023 profit and all of those going on. This is what it is. So we'd just like to get into all of this, like help us understand how big this is and before we begin to get into Transcorp and power issues.
All right. So the NSIA, that's the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, reported the very good 2023. They made over 1.8 trillion, 1.18 trillion naira in profit. For those that don't know, the NSIA was set up by the President Jonathan administration to is basically the Nigerian sovereign wealth fund to help manage Nigeria's oil wealth for future generations and also to help build out infrastructure for the country, as well as also helping to stabilize government revenues in times of stress, like during COVID. So there is three funds in one. There's a future generations fund, there's a stabilization fund, and there's an infrastructure fund. So the NSI's profits were boosted by basically two things: fair value gains in the naira, right? The dollar to the naira rate, right, based on the devaluation. There was also fair value gains in his investment portfolios. I think it was a very good result. Total assets have surged to about 2.5 trillion naira. You have retained earnings of over 1.3 trillion, 1.3 trillion naira. So I think the country the country should be happy that the sovereign wealth fund is doing quite well. We also saw for that period that the government was able to release about $96 million in extra funding for the sovereign wealth fund, and this came from the signing of the Petroleum Investment Act, right? So in that act, oil companies are supposed to release extra funds to the sovereign wealth fund when oil prices go above a certain level. So all in all, it's quite positive. I know a lot of Nigerians are not really looking at this, but we think if we want to be in the category of countries like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, that have managed to get their oil well to work for them and build up huge reserves of dollars based on their oil wealth, then is to continue to go the way the sovereign wealth fund is going. Even Norway, right? Norway has close to $1 trillion in its sovereign wealth fund, and they just set it up in 1980. So I think this is the way to go for us to begin to build up our sovereign wealth fund. Thank you.
It's nice you brought up Saudi. You brought up Saudi, and then you brought up Qatar, and then you even talked about Norway. So
Yeah.
the NSI is our vision of what the sovereign would, of what is even in Europe and other parts of the world.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't get that.
No, I'm saying the NSIA is our own version of what the Saudis also have, the sovereign wealth
Yes.
fund also.
Yes. Yes. Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. So apparently it's modeled after what we saw them do, try to make out of their wealth and making investments. So let's go on to the other issue of should NSI be bold in its investment, going beyond these areas of investment that brought up this profit, be bold and get into other areas.
I think they, to be fair, they have actually broadened their investment scope beyond financial assets, right? So, if you notice, I said they have three major funds: Future Generation Fund, and Stabilization Fund, and Infrastructure Fund. So, for the first two funds, they basically invest in financial assets like treasury bills, equities, private equity, fixed income securities, and all that. But for the third one, that's infrastructure fund. They actually invest in bricks and mortar, basically in Nigeria. And so they have investments, wide investments across Nigeria, across various sectors, healthcare. So they have diagnostic healthcare facilities across the country, supposed to be one in each geopolitical zone. If you don't forget, they were basically the major investors in the second Niger Bridge that is now completed. They are investing in data centers, they're investing in toll roads, they're investing in agriculture, they're also investing in building out other types of infrastructure for the country. So all in all, I think they are quite bold. One area where I will probably like to see them invest a little bit more is in the emerging technology space, right, in the world, right, which is basically artificial intelligence. So if you look at the Saudi, the Qataris, and even the Norway fund, um, um, a big chunk of those funds invest in growth sectors for the next growth phase of the global economy, right? So yeah, you see them investing in Tesla's, you see them investing in Nvidia, artificial intelligence stocks, and what have you, because basically for the next maybe 20, 30 years, those are the companies that will drive the global economy. So I think the NSIA should also be a little bit forward looking to help us not miss out on the coming growth in AI and tech that will drive the global economy. So they could probably deploy a little bit more capital to those areas.
Now let's touch base with Transcorp Power. Buy, sell, or to hold. But before we get to that, it's looking like it was listed on Nigerian Stock Exchange on Monday. That's last month by introduction. What is a listing by introduction?
Okay, so there are basically, thank you so much, Jad. There are basically two ways to come to market for a stock, right? You have initial public offering, which basically means that's an IPO, which means the sponsor of the IPO is looking to raise some capital, and they eventually bring some of those shares to the market, and sell to prospective investors. A listing by introduction is another way. It just basically means that the shares of the company are listed on the stock market, and they don't necessarily, and they're not necessarily going to raise money from that listing. So it just means the owners of the company just want to list list those shares, and hopefully the shares start trading, and the company, there will be some liquidity in those shares, and the shares will start trading. So the Transcorp did a listing by introduction. The owners of the majority owners of the stock uh, didn't really. They just wanted to create some kind of value for to get an idea of where how the stock will trade. It's not as if they wanted to raise some money through initial public offering. So that's kind of
So
the difference between the two. Yeah,
that's more like testing the waters
testing the waters, yes, and trying to
for now.
find.
So let's get on to what we see here.
Okay.
So we've got Geregu Power and Transcorp Power on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Are we seeing a path paved for electricity companies to be listed on the exchange right now? If you can do this for us briefly.
Yes, we are. I think Geregu Power kind of was a trailblazer in that for a long time it was the only listed power company, and because it has done so well, going from about $100, 100 naira to close to 1,000 naira, it has also helped to compel or incentivize other power companies to come to the market. Um, we believe the sector is opening up, right? Even though some of the issues with tariff is still a little bit controversial, but we think that um, other other players in the whole value chain, especially the discos, should also consider trying to get to the market, because it will help broaden their ability to raise capital. Right, a lot of them right now are raising debt capital. So, but if they come to the market, they could probably be able to raise some equity as well. So I think it's a good thing for the Nigerian markets. Yeah.
I know the listener would like to know what your thoughts would be on this increase for Band A customers in Nigeria. And I know, but just before we came on, I teased you about it, which of the bands you fall into. So let's
Yeah.
get that briefly from you.
Okay. To be fair, it's a very tight rope that the government and the power companies are working on, and also the consumers. So I cannot sympathize with both sides. You have a situation whereby for the things that go into the final tariffs, right? So there are things like inflation when you want to calculate the tariff. So you have on things that make up those tariffs. So you have inflation, you have the exchange rate, you have some other macro trends that go into calculating the final tariff, and a lot of those indices have kind of deteriorated since the last tariff increase. So we all know where the dollar to the naira is. We all know where inflation is, right? So a lot. So the argument is that you need a broad market reflective tariffs to make the power sector to become or to make the power sector be viable. So what the government is trying to do is they're trying to get this rate increase to affect just maybe the top maybe 5 to 10% of consumers. But then on the other side of it is, if a lot of those consumers have already been hit by by the macro environment, the devaluation, the inflation, and if you now add on a tariff increase, it might make them also pass on some of those increase to their consumers, because a lot of those guys are going to be the manufacturers and some of the high end companies that use those tariffs. So that you are in that band A. So it's a tough thing. I think there should be a little bit, maybe more, a little bit more negotiation. To see if if the increase could be measured, brought down a bit. But if you want to go down the chain, I think a lot of Nigerians, if you want to go into band B, band C, band D, a lot of Nigerians might not be able to afford that tariff increase. So it's a tightrope that everyone is walking right now. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I can't quite hear you.